Hey guys, welcome back to the channel once again. So finally getting around to doing something about my car. If you followed along at all, I bought a Kenne supercharger like 5 months ago and put it on my 4.6 Cobra and got to enjoy it for like 2 months, and I don't think it's sitting over here anymore. The secondary chain on the driver's side snapped and probably bent my valve, so I just said screw it. I'm moving on from the old tired 4.6 and moving on into something newer and more reliable. The Generation 1 Coyote Engine. It's got 70,000 miles on it. Looks really clean. So, you know, for coming out of a 2013 model, it's been, 11 years. It's like 7,000 miles a year or something, if that. So this car wasn't driven very much. The donor car, at least. I got some other stuff that came in the mail today. I'll show you out here in a second, but I just pulled the Kenne off and sold it. Now I'm just trying to get all of this old stuff out of here and get the engine bay ready for receiving its new stuff, that being the engine and it's down in here, UPR chromoly K member. There's a scram speed pedal bracket in there as well. My fuel system, it's right here. The 97s come with a return style fuel system. So all that I did was got a filter and regulator from a C5 Corvette. It has a feed and return built in. I'm sure you may have seen it if you're watching this video. You're probably familiar with it, but it looks like a filter, but it's got a return line coming out of the back of it. So and it keeps your fuel pressure at 58 psi. So what I'm gonna do in the new edges, like they put it in the back of the car where the fuel filter like usually goes. I think what I'm planning to do is take that C5 filter, and I have a feed and a return hard line right here. So I think I'm gonna do some AN lines and then pull this wiper cowl, and I'm gonna put the C5 fuel filter back behind there along with the Coyote PCM. That way I can plug in right here, and then I'll have the fuel filter somewhere over in the center behind all this, and then I'm just gonna have one fuel line come straight out and connect to the fuel rail on the Coyote. So that's the plan, at least. My swap is going to end up costing right around $8,000 total, because with the UPRK member, I'm keeping spring perches and I keep the front suspension geometry the same. I'm not switching to coilovers quite yet. Maybe one day, if they make a really nice strut tower brace that will fit over the Coyote, I may switch to coilovers, because they are a lot better ride. I liked them in the new edge, but I just don't like the idea of putting all of the weight of the car up on the shock towers, because they weren't made for that, and these cars are notorious for the strut towers rusting out anyway. So yeah, I'm gonna start yanking this thing apart, and then go from there. I have most of the parts I need. I still need a Gen 1 PCM and a control pack, and I also need a the accessory drive brackets and a new timing cover. This one, the alternator caught something and broke this ear off, and then you can see there's still a piece of the alternator here. So when the car was wrecked, unfortunately something hit the alternator and broke it off, so I just got to replace the timing cover. Hopefully there's no surprises in there when I pull that off, but this thing's pretty low mile, so I seriously doubt it. But yeah, gonna start pulling all this apart and then go from there. Luckily for me, the clutch and flywheel and pressure plate from the 4.6 all will bolt right up to the Coyote, and I just replaced them last year, so I don't. It's a Super Street Pro McLeod clutch and McLeod light and steel flywheel with all new hardware. So I'm just going to transfer it right over because it's already went through its break-in period, plus maybe like 500 miles. I don't drive the car that much, so as soon as I drop the Coyote in it, I ain't got to wait on the break-in period. I can just go to town, so that's a plus. I'm gonna have a lot of parts coming up for sale here soon. I got a Gen 2 PCM and body harness. I got all kinds of parts from the COBRA. I still got all kinds of parts from the Gen 2 swap I did. So I think I'm gonna make a big post in the Coyote swap page, like listing everything I got. I got so much stuff here. I could build a whole nother car. But yeah, I'm gonna start yanking this stuff apart. All right, so just in case any of you guys you're doing a Coyote swap and you've never pulled one of these cars apart before, I'm gonna give you a little bit of detail on how to do it here. So as you can see, I've already removed my radiator, my fan, my battery, or my battery's still charging, but the intake, all that stuff. So what I'm doing now, I'm getting the car up in the air, and I'm going to drop the drive shaft, then I'm going to drop the exhaust from the manifolds, and then I'm going to drop the transmission. So with the drive shaft, you need 12 millimeter 12-point wrench. It has to be a 12-point wrench, not a 6-sided wrench, a 12-sided wrench. Otherwise, you'll round this thing off. And one thing you want to do, you can see, you might be able to see it, but mark your drive shaft and flange. That way, you know how it was bolted on there before. I don't know how much that matters, but I was always told to do that. So yeah, so pull those 4 bolts and then your drive shaft will drop. The back side will drop, and then you'll be able to slide the drive shaft out of the tail piece of the transmission. You're going to want to drain your transmission fluid first though. So you're going to come right here, pull this drain plug, and then after that you'll move forward and start pulling the bell housing bolts up there. And yeah, if you don't have a transmission jack, you can use a floor jack and a ratchet strap, but essentially you'll pull your your exhaust off, pull the starter out, unhook the clutch cable from the fork right there, and then just start dropping your bell housing bolts. The 2 on the top are really hard to get to. So there's a couple different ways to do it. You can loosen the motor mount bolts and tilt the transmission down and like kind of, just set the transmission back, and that'll give you access with a bunch of extensions and a swivel socket. It fucking sucks. If you ever have to remove those bolts, you'll see what I'm talking about. But lucky for me, where I pulled the kenne bell off, the car still doesn't have an intake on it. So let me see if I can film this. You can actually see the transmission there. I don't know if you can see it, but pretty much right back there's the transmission. The top 2 bolts are right there, so I can actually reach them from the engine bay and break them loose. That's really the hardest part, is just breaking them loose. But yeah, so I'm gonna drop the drive shaft, drop the exhaust, drop the starter, drop the trans, and then we'll see about getting the engine out of there. All right, so I figured I'd pick up and show you. I have the exhaust removed. I also pulled my drive shaft out, and then I pulled the starter, and I was up under here and I wanted to show you guys something. I've heard people bitch about this before. So the power steering pump, you can zip 3 of those bolts off with your impact with the extension, but the last bolt is like behind the hard line. So what I do is I bring a ratchet wrench in from the front of the pulley, and you loosen the first 3, and then you take this one out last, and the pump just slowly drops down out of there. All right, so I got a good bit done. I'm gonna call it a night this evening. I went ahead and pulled the battery. I pulled the engine harness, the trans harness, the starter harness. I dropped the power steering, and you know, all the other stuff I pulled. But not really sure which way I want to take the engine out of the car. I really don't want to put the engine in through the top again, because it's always been a bitch every time I've done it. So I'm wanting to drop this through the bottom and then put the Coyote in through the bottom, but as you can see, my garage is only like 8 foot high, and I've never done it before. So like, I was trying to figure out how I could lift the car without being on the K member, how I can lift it up and down. And I tried lifting it on the rad support like I seen in a YouTube video, and mine started flexing, so I stopped. I guess I'm just gonna have to jack up each side a little bit, until I get it high enough to where I can roll the engine out from under there and then roll the new one up under there. So I got another shipment today. I got some AN fuel lines, nylon braided steel fuel lines with AN fittings, and what else came? Oh, my Speed Engineering long tube headers. Those are in the house. I'll have to show those to y'all. They look great. They look better than the BBKs. And then we got, in this box, I got a UPR chromoly K member with spring perches. I got a bunch of stuff in the mail. I just placed an order with Power by the Hour. I got the front timing cover. I got the accessory drive and a Boss 302 alternator with the clutchless pulley. All of that'll be here Thursday. I think my fuel pump would be fine because it ran the supercharged 4.6 fine, but I went ahead and bought a it's a special Walbro only for 96 to 97 Cobras, but it's a Walbro 255 high flow, but I think it flows at 320, at 12 volts. Or at 13.5 volts. I'm not sure. But it's like, supposedly it flows higher than that to where when you run a higher fuel pressure, it'll still give you 255 liters per hour. So I got that. And then, you know, I have the Corvette fuel pump. So that'll get my fuel system nice and tidy. I ordered some motor mount shims too. And just some other little odds and ends that I thought that I might need. So hopefully everything will be here on Thursday. The last thing I need to order is the control pack. Probably gonna try to order it about sometime next week, but I that's the only thing I need. I have everything else, so that's a good thing. I got some special fitting for the fuel line too, because I have an electronic fuel pressure sensor, and Glow Shift makes this like special Coyote fuel rail adapter, so I can screw that right in. So that was pretty neat. But yeah, I think I'm gonna go get showered up, and then I might tinker on this thing some more tomorrow night, and then hopefully I'll have decided how I want to drop this engine out of here. Just matter of fact, I'll show you. The reason I'm so hesitant is because I've had the engine out of this car before because I couldn't get the fucking transmission bolts out of it. The top two transmission bolts would not come out, so I had to pull the engine. And one of the bolts broke off. So this time around, I took the trans bolts out from the top. Yeah, I had to pull it out through the top just to change the clutch. And when I did, I had to cut a notch in my roof joist. So, and it was just sketchy. I almost had to cut all the way through. I had to cut like 2/3 of the way through that beam. I don't know if you can see that right there, but it was a sketchy day, and I was like just barely had clearance, and I'm like, it was a nightmare. But I don't want to do that again. So my issue is I can't push the car out of the garage and turn it around by myself, so I gotta wait until I can find somebody to help me do it. But yeah, it's going along great. I have everything I need, so stay tuned.